Hello bookworms, I'm Hannah. Today I'm sharing the books from my June reading that ravaged my heart and tickled my imagination. First up is some thrilling nonfiction that I picked up after listening to a fascinating episode of Radiolab on poison control, which I'll link to in the description box. The Poisoner's Handbook by Deborah Blum takes us deep into the streets of Jazz Age New York, where bootleggers are churning out deadly brews and the public, desperate for alcohol under the thumb of prohibition, is slinging back illegal drinks and dropping dead in record numbers, on top of which murderers are using undetectable poisons growing more common in household products to commit the perfect crime. Enter Chief Medical Examiner Charles Norris and his toxicologist buddy Alexander Gettler, the heroes New York City needed. Together, they dressed in black and took to the streets at night, throwing down crime bosses and hauling them to the police station. Okay, so that's not quite how it went. Norris and Gettler fought crime in a lab using chemistry, building and shaping forensic science to pinpoint deadly substances, to engineer and improve methods for detecting poisons in corpses, and to aid with solving murder cases that baffled police. If you want to learn more about these two trailblazing scientists, if you happen to love chemistry, or if you enjoy reading about calculating murderers, this is the book for you. Next up is a book that's been described as a science fiction spectacle, Space Opera by Catherine M. Valente, in which alien races compete for prestige in a galactic music contest. Winner takes all the glory, and the loser's planet will be incinerated. Earth has been chosen to compete in the Galactic Grand Prix for the very first time, and the fate of the world rests on the shoulders of a washed-up rock star named Decibel Jones, who's reputed to have invented the entire electro-funk glam grind genre. What is the best way to describe this book? It's like if you were to throw Eurovision, the off-the-wall humor of Douglas Adams, that pop culture alien from Explorers, some acute observations about the human race, and a generous pinch of cocaine into a blender and mix it into a froth, you would have space opera. If that doesn't tell you this is a book for a niche audience, I don't know what will. On top of which, it's mostly world building about various alien races who have competed in the Galactic Grand Prix in years past. Plot and character depth are sacrificed for pop culture references, puns, and lavender oceans filled with sugar water. Space opera is a weird, yet wonderful, gloomy, yet humorous tale of first contact, music, and glitter. It's not a book for everyone, but if it's the right book for you, you're gonna love it. Now, if you'd like to feel nothing but howling despair for 230 pages, then have I got a book for you. The Enchanted by Rene Denfeld, shortlisted for the Center for Fiction First Novel Prize in 2014, is a story conveyed through the eyes of a death row inmate who copes with his confinement by adopting a whimsical view of his surroundings and by reading books. This is an astonishing debut that celebrates the wonders of reading in a really dark way. For this narrator, who is trapped in a cell within a dungeon on death row awaiting execution, his escape, or his alternate reality, is derived from the world found within the books he reads. He pulls enchantment out of his books into the real world. This is magical realism at its finest, and it makes for a jarring juxtaposition, this narrator's childlike imagination and the slow unveiling of the horrifying things he's capable of. And he's not the only character who's damaged. We also follow his fellow inmate who's next up for execution, a priest, and a woman who works as a death penalty investigator. All of them have secrets and tarnished pasts that Denfeld reveals over time, drawing uncomfortable parallels between the innocent and the guilty, and ultimately forcing us to ask some difficult questions about humanity. Don't be fooled by words like whimsical and enchanted. This book is not light and fluffy. It's bleak, depressing, and will ravage you to your core. As much as The Enchanted blew me away, the apex of my reading month concerns a duology. Book one of the duology is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I talked about this young adult fantasy in my 2017 Best Books of the Year. It concerns two primary characters, Laszlo Strange, an orphaned bibliophile with an insatiable obsession with the fabled lost city of Weep, and a girl with an unusual talent, who also has a vested interest in the lost city of Weep. This book is an epic fantasy that layers mystery upon mystery, has a dynamic cast of characters, and is heady with intoxicating prose. If you enjoy reading epic fantasies and you haven't read this book yet, what are you doing with your life? You need to rectify that immediately. And if you've already read this book, you might want to consider reading it again because frankly, it made for a bewitching reread. I unearthed so many little gems that had escaped my notice on my first read. The reason I reread this amazing book is because its sequel ranks among my most anticipated reads of 2018, and I was fortunate enough to get my hands on an ARC. Enter Book 2 of this duology, the triumphant sequel, Muse of Nightmares by Rene Taylor. This book is filled with longing and sorrow, passion and sacrifice, and answers to every question that surfaces in its predecessor. The truth is, I love Strange the Dreamer more, but this book is exquisite in its own right. Among its most radiant qualities is the introduction of new characters that absolutely laid claim to my heart. I was breathless, waiting to learn what would happen to them. You should have seen me reading this book. I was a sobbing mess. I was like Bastion in the Never-Ending Story. This book's one flaw, if you can even call it that, is that a significant number of its pages are dedicated to recapping its predecessor, which is fine if it's been a while since you read Strange the Dreamer. Everything you need to reorient yourself in this world is here for your convenience. But if you read Strange the Dreamer for the first time, or if you're like me and you reread Strange the Dreamer immediately before picking up Muse of Nightmares, then you'll have to endure a fair amount of recap. Nevertheless, Rene Taylor remains the goddess of storytelling. Every time I read one of her books, I marvel at her imagination and revel in the majesty of her linguistic style. I'm just so grateful that she has drawn stardust and feathered down, ripe plums and powerful girls from her imagination and woven them into tapestries that take the form of books. I don't want to spoil this book for anyone, so I'm just going to wrap this up by saying that monsters and beauty await you in Muse of Nightmares. In my last video, I said that I would be posting my most anticipated books being published in the second half of 2018 on social media, and I did that. If you missed that posting, you can just head on over to Twitter and find the books I shared. It's everything from macabre middle grade and Yiddish folk tales to adult literary fiction and nonfiction about horizontal gene transfer. I also posted on Instagram and Twitter my top 10 reads of the year so far. If you want to share with me your best book of the year so far, please tell me in the comments. And if you found any books in today's video that tickled your fancy, let me know which ones. Thanks, everybody.